When we were young, 2024, all album plays, 57 records from front to back. We here at the Emo Social Club, we're almost done. We are reviewing all 57 of them.
Yeah, you said that we're in our 40s now, so how do you feel?
I feel fine. But before we do hit that 40, we have to review this one. And on this episode, we are reviewing Thursday's Full Collapse. Lizzie, before we get into our opinions on this, before we start talking about what we think of this record, please tell us a little bit more about Thursday and about this record, Full Collapse.
This was their second studio album. It came out on April 10th, 2001 via Victory Records. Their singles that came off of this album were Cross Out the Eyes and Understanding a Car Crash. During this kind of run that they did, they toured with a lot of different bands. Boy Set Fire, Saves the Day, Rival School, and The Movie Life were just a few. They placed 178 on the Billboard 200 chart, but they're number 10 on the Heat Seekers chart. Every single song has a different type of meaning or theme or concept behind it. So I think that this band has been able to cover a lot, and I don't think a lot of us maybe think about those harder issues and topics. So I thought that was very interesting from this album. And
especially when, you know, they go into war all the time, which is talking about the Iraq war, Afghanistan, all that. It's like you have a band that is very politically driven, politically motivated. Geoff Rickley is himself a very like progressively minded artist.
Yeah.
I remember even from like their band saying, you know, download all of our music. I don't care. Like, just get it, whatever it is. So I think that may have been one of the reasons why Thursday may not have been like the most popular band. But also I think that now like people are realizing, oh shit, Thursday is like really on top of it. Like early to a lot of this stuff that like now bands are using to kind of promote themselves as like a very progressive band that like, you know, people are people in the fandom are like, this means a lot to me. And it's like Thursday was like, I'm doing it when it's not popular.
They're like, we were here first. We were doing it already as we should have been doing it this whole entire time. And we're not making it a whole spectacle. We're just doing it because this is what...
Because it's right.
It's just what we're supposed to be doing.
We are going to get into our thoughts on this record, but before we do, make sure you hit subscribe. We are almost through the entire 57 of this. We only have a few more months to go. So make sure you are subscribed to hear our thoughts and our takes on the rest of these records and all the ones that have come before. And we're not stopping there. We have a lot of thoughts on a lot of records that aren't being played at when we were young. So hit the subscribe button down below. Hit like on this video if you want more people to see it. If you like Thursday, a like for us is a like for Thursday. We also have longer versions of some of these episodes over on our Patreon. We have some additional takes, some additional context from us, a little bit more of Lizzie and I talking about ourselves. So if you are interested in that, we have patreon.com/Emo Social Club or become a member right here on YouTube.
It's the best value around right now, honestly.
Lizzie, you've listened to this record before talking about it on this recording. So why don't you tell us your thoughts on Thursday's Full Collapse?
When I found out about Thursday, I was probably like 13, 14 years old, which is when I found out about like My Chemical Romance. Of course, when you find out about My Chem, then you kind of look at what inspired them to become the band that they are. So I was looking at these bands that they've worked with or they were influenced by, and Thursday was one of the main ones that came up pretty frequently. So I listened to Thursday. At the time, I was like, I get it, but I didn't fully get it because I was still more situated with more regular melodies, like light screaming. Mm-hmm. But this was also around the time from like 14 to 15 to 16, started getting into punk more, which is very aggressive, very fast, very raw and unfiltered. So as I got more into high school at that point, I was getting more into punk, and then I would sometimes revisit Thursday or hear like a single, or I would see it played on like Fuse or something as like a throwback type of thing. And I would say, oh, that sounds really good. I like it. I remember I've seen Thursday a handful of times. Sometimes it's accidental because they're playing a fest. And I'm like, oh, yeah, they're playing before another band, and I'm going to wait for the next band. Whatever. I like them. I'll have a good time. But the main time that I actually like kind of like honed in, like I locked in, was at the MCR reunion show because they were the openers.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was like so stoked. I'm like, yeah, this is gonna be so good. This makes so much sense.
Yeah, it does.
And me knowing like the whole history and influence of it, I'm like, this is so cool. But that's like my experience with it. And I really think that going back and listening, because it's been a while since I've listened to Full Collapse in full, I really like this album. It really kind of blends, and I think it links together this original emo sound to the new emo sound because a lot of us can trace it back to origins of My Chem. And while some people may think that that's childish or whatever, it is such an easy gateway to get more into that past music that happened. And it makes it more digestible for people too. Now, here are my top songs from Thursday's Full Collapse. Autobiography of a Nation. This may sound a little bit crazy. It sounds really pretty to me before it goes into the main breakdown.
No, I see what you're saying.
I wrote it out. I'm like, people are going to get it or they're going to think I'm crazy. So this has a lot more like of that twinkly OG emo guitars that are in the background, but you also have it paired with melodies and also really aggressive, raw screaming, and it just kind of comes together really well. This is also a song where I feel you can actually understand where the influential part, where there's so many other bands that cite Thursday as being like one of their main bands that they always listen to or go back to for inspiration. You can hear a lot of different parts throughout this song and say, yeah, I see where My Chem put it from. I see where all these other acts pulled their musical songwriting or just music writing from. And I think this is a song that is very much in that realm. I think it's a very strong and understated song. My second is Paris in Flames. One, I really like the title. I think that's fun because, you know, to get things done, they have to set things on fire. And I think that's fun.
Okay. Whatever your reasoning, I guess.
The guitars here are much more up-tempo and bouncy. So it's not as dark, but it's brighter sounding, but it is covering more, obviously, like darker topics. I really like the spoken word portion, too. That's partway through. I love spoken word in a song or any type of like additional audio that's from like other media as well. I think that's always really cool if it's done really well. I've heard it been done terribly. This is not a case. And maybe this is something that you could probably give to somebody if they're most likely already in like the emo scene, like maybe mall emo, and you said, hey kids, here's a song I think you should listen to that kind of sounds similar to what you're used to, and get them to understand a little bit more of the post-hardcore scene here. And then my third is I Am the Killer, because it gives me horror punk vibes. It's so spooky. The vocals are raw and they're guttural in the screams. And I really like that. You have so much emotion going on throughout this entire album, but here you're so upset about something. And sometimes the only way you can get it out is if you force it out of yourself. And that's what it sounds like. And they also have that really, really tight bass line near the end. I was like, ooh, I like a nice tight bass line. My least favorites from Thursday's Full Collapse. I don't really have any.
Fucking right.
This is a really good album. I have no issues or qualms with this album.
It's like sitting here quietly for like a few minutes, just being like, let's see where she goes. And then it's like least favorites. And it's like, don't fuck this up. Stick the landing. Stuck it. Landing stuck.
My thing is like, I always try to go through a lot of our reviews and look through and be actually somewhat critical and say, do I actually really dislike this? Or am I just gonna, or is this something that works for me now, or I can just put it on background and be like, oh, okay, whatever. No, I can't do anything because all these songs draw me in. It will draw anybody in. It is very good. I have no issues with this album.
These are my thoughts on Thursday's Full Collapse. The first time I heard Thursday was seeing the music video for Cross Out the Eyes. I think it was on MTV. It could have even been on VH1, maybe MTV2. Somewhere along the line, I saw the music video for it, and I said it was right around the time that, you know, The Used and a lot of these other bands were getting on MTV, and it was becoming very popular. Obviously, a lot of those records kind of came out around the same time or a little bit later. So I think Thursday was starting to get caught up in a lot of that wave and getting, you know, some radio play, some MTV play. And I was immediately hooked. I was like, Cross Out the Eyes is fantastic. Understanding in a Car Crash came soon after. So I'm like, okay, I'm in. Like, this band is excellent. But I never really checked out the record. I don't know what it was, but it was like, oh, I know the singles, I know these songs, but I never went back and like listened to the full record for some reason. Thursday was just a band that I was like, yeah, I like these two songs. I know that they are legendary, and I know that they are a band that a lot of other bands cite. My Chemical Romance being one of our favorite bands. It's like, of course, like I gotta put respect on the name of Thursday. I gotta put respect on the name of Geoff Rickley. I also listened to some of the songs from War all the time, which came out like after it was like instead of going back to listen to Full Collapse, I just listened to War all the time and like newer stuff that came out afterwards. Cause now it's like the wave had caught me and now I'm caught in the wave and I'm listening to the new stuff and I'm learning about the next thing instead of the thing that came before. I think that's just how I was as a high schooler. I don't know. I liked the heavy shit and like this is specifically like my shit, like the post-hardcore scene and this genre, this part of the genre of emo especially is my shit. This is the thing that I'm always looking for, especially now as we're like looking back and being nostalgic about all of it, is like, this is what I want to like revisit. This is the thing that like I'm looking for, is more of this, you know? I did just see them earlier this year for the War All the Time album play. And I got to say, like, it impressed me how tight this band still plays. That like there are all these bands that are doing, you know, they're reuniting or they're doing these album plays or doing these tours, and like it sounded so close to the recording. It was crazy. And I have to give just massive props to the talent of the players in this band and Geoff and everybody. It was phenomenal. This record is fucking incredible. This record is so fucking good. I cannot say enough nice things about it, and so I need 30 more minutes. I understand completely why this band is looked at as like the godfathers of the scene, one of the most important bands for like the reason we have the music we have now, the reason that there is a nostalgia wave is like, if not for a band like Thursday being this good, this incredible, writing songs this fucking good, we would not have the scene that we have. Frankly, straight up, like this record bangs from front to back. There are so many rippers on this track list. There's a ton of things here that people stole directly from this band. We already talked about in the Hawthorne Heights episode. There's a lot here that I'm like, this is Hawthorne Heights is now We Have Thursday at Home, because this record is like so clearly influential on so many bands that came immediately after and like 10 years down the line after. It's very clear that like this band, you know, not only is influencing me right now in this moment, but also like influencing people for the last 2 decades. I'm like not sure if this record had like a remix version or a remastered version, but this record also sounds really good.
Yeah.
Like you know, Spotify sometimes has like a little bit lower fidelity than I know there's discussions about like Apple Music and we have a Tidal subscription as well.
Yeah.
That I'm like, maybe I got to listen to this stuff on Tidal, because if it sounds better, you know, it might be worth it. This record does sound very good. And I don't know if there's like a remixed version that happened, but for a record that came out in 2001 on Victory Records, that like, I don't know what the budget behind them going in the studio on this, but considering like My Chem's first record that came out that sounds that like raw and underdeveloped, this sounds like a full production major label record. It sounds incredible. And I don't know what that is, but props to whoever did this because incredible. My top tracks from Thursday's Full Collapse, we shared 2 out of 3.
Let's go.
I will say Cross Out the Eyes is still my favorite on this record.
Okay.
I could listen to that song on repeat. I think that song is an absolute banger. Understanding in a Car Crash obviously is too. I think that Understanding in a Car Crash is much more of that, like what we think of when we think of looking back at the nostalgia of the emo scene. The guitars and the way that like the screams and the vocals sound is very much what people would think of, you know, like that's the sound. And I think Cross Out the Eyes does that just a little bit more as a ripper version, a little bit shorter, a little bit more to the point. So that is my favorite on the record, but I'm going to choose 3 that are not singles.
Wow.
So Autobiography of a Nation, I wrote here in all caps, rips. The breakdowns in this song are so heavy.
Yeah.
And have so much energy. Like I cannot imagine what it must feel like, you know, we're thinking of this in the context of going to the fest, and it's like, that pit's going to be awesome. Bunch of 40-year-old dudes just in that pit. We talked a little bit about, you know, Geoff Rickley and his lyricism and the sort of things that he puts into the lyrics. And this one being about imperialism. Like, I think that, you know, this song even now like stands for exactly the same thing that it stood for when it was written. This song, not only sonically, but also lyrically stands the test of time. This record stands the test of time. So this is like one of those that I would recommend if like you are like needing a song that kind of gets that energy out because you're pissed off or you're like feeling some type of way about, you know, modern shit. And you're like, I got to get some energy out. Paris in Flames, You know it.
Let's go.
The main thing about this record is how it moves between the more melodic parts, the more heavier parts, and the parts where the drums really get to shine. The drumming on this record is so good. This is like my example of where the drums really hit, for lack of a better word, where the drums hit on this record. This song to me brings all of the pieces of what makes Thursday together in a really nice way. On repeat listens, it just stood out to me. It's a really nice encapsulation of that sound. And I like kept thinking about, Paris in Flames. And like, I wanted to revisit it the more I listened to this record, which I listened to this record like a bunch more times just because I was like, I'm enjoying it. I want to listen to it again and again and again. My third one was Standing on the Edge of Summer. Probably because it is summer right now. Okay. We're listening to this in summer. But this also has that other vibe of a lot of the OG emo stuff like Taking Back Sunday and more of like what you would listen to of the poppy side of things, as poppy as Thursday can get. There's just a lot of nostalgia to the sound of this song. There's a lot of like stories about, love and like romance and that kind of side of it to this song. This is just that feeling from that like early 2000s emo that like, for me being in high school at that time really brought me back to like a moment in time. I honestly got chills hearing it. I was like, holy shit. Like I am like feeling like so fucking good hearing this song. It like just feels really nice to hear something like this again. So yeah, like I said, I'm looking for these kinds of sounds when we're going back through these records, thinking about that nostalgia. A lot of nostalgia on this record, a lot of good vibes on this record.
So you found your one song that's like your teen movie anthem.
It's summers with friends. It's summers like talking about Warped Tour experience, like sort of reliving those feelings of like what it was like to drive to Warped Tour with your friends and like listen to new bands and all that, and hearing like that song just sort of made me feel that moment. Yeah. So yeah, you could say that. Yeah. It's like a teen movie-ish. My least favorite tracks from Thursday's Full Collapse. Nothing, obviously. There's no bad track on this record. Here will be my only mild critique, which I kind of said during our Hawthorne Heights episode too. There's a lot of vocal runs that Geoff does that are kind of happening throughout the record. It's his style. I don't think it becomes overly repetitive. I think it's because bands like My Chem and Hawthorne Heights do the similar things on records from around this time that it just sort of like is ingrained in my head as like these are the sounds that happen. But it's not Geoff Rickley's fault that he had a style that everybody else tried to copy. But, the same thing we talk about with pop punk is like I'm hearing bands that do what other bands have done, and I'm attributing it to the newer bands and not the older bands that did it first. And so I'm learning it, but I will just say like that's a critique. It's the best critique I can come up with is like Geoff Rickley's style has unfortunately been stolen by a bunch of other artists that were heavily influenced by Thursday. But this record is fucking incredible. Everybody should hear this record. Everybody should listen to this record. And they sound so good live. I am imagining that at When We Were Young, this record is going to sound exactly like how it sounds on the record. You're going to see them play it live and it's going to be like, I'm listening to the record. This band puts on such a good show. And I know we're getting to this later, but it's going to sound exactly like this. Hot take alert. All right. Hot take alert. Shut off the video. If you don't want to hear the hot take, shut off the video.
Just like jump like what, 5 minutes probably?
No, just never come back to the channel. Unsubscribe. All right. If you're not happy for hot takes, unsubscribe. Everything that I said about Alesana, I'm saying it right for you. You're welcome. Everything I said about Alesana is like you tried to do Thursday and failed. You tried so hard to do everything on this record and failed so spectacularly. Because like a song like I Am the Killer is so clearly what Alesana was trying to do. It has like those like same vocal parts. It has the same like guitar parts. It has all the same shit that Alesana just cannot replicate in the same way that Thursday is capable of doing. And like that, it like sparked that moment for me when listening to this, like, oh, I get it. You fucking suck at doing Thursday. I get it. Oh, okay, cool. Are you ready for my hottest take?
Oh, there's another one?
This might be the hottest take I've ever had. Are you ready for the hottest take?
I don't know, homie.
This is going to be like fire. This is going to be a very hot take. This is going to be very hot take. I think that the only My Chemical Romance record that sounds like My Chemical Romance as a band is 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. I think that I Brought You My Bullets is so Thursday ripoff. And as I've said with Black Parade, there's so much on there that's just Queen ripoffs, Cheap Trick ripoffs, Pink Floyd ripoffs. And then you get to Danger Days and it's like, these are David Bowie ripoffs. These are Stooges ripoffs. There's so much on all My Chem records that are basically like doing other bands with these guys playing it. 3 Cheers to me is the only record where My Chem sounds like what My Chemical Romance actually is. We're gonna let the silence.
Really?
We're gonna let the silence sit for a second. Think about what I've said. Process.
You really ripped on my favorite album of I Brought You My Bullets.
I know. I think that My Chemical Romance is talented. They are one of my top favorite bands of all time.
Yeah.
You know this. Like I only critique them because I love them so dearly. They mean so much to me. But I'm like, it's so hard to separate what you hear on Bullets from what you hear on Full Collapse. Just done like with a less produced sound, with just the sense that they're like doing what Thursday was doing. Like and they're produced by Geoff.
Yeah,
like it's a direct correlation there.
Right. But I mean, they still had their own spooky style to it too. That's the thing. They were still telling different stories.
They're telling different stories.
Bullets.
Yes.
And they had also a little bit more of like more dingy and grungy than Thursday Full Collapse.
Yes. They were trying to be dirtier for sure.
Yeah.
But there's a lot musically that is just trying to do Full Collapse to me. It's like this record is so good that I'm not faulting anybody, My Chem, Hawthorne Heights, anybody else from trying to do exactly what Thursday did on this record. This record is incredible. Mm-hmm. But I think we need to maybe re-examine what we think about My Chemical Romance through the lens of how good Thursday is.
So you want to do a rhetorical critique through the lens of Thursday?
I'm allowing you to do it. I just do podcast. I do podcast and lie.
I didn't lie.
I do podcast, eat hot chip and lie. That's all I do.
Right.
I've said what I said, and I am going to leave the room. Those are our thoughts on Thursday's Full Collapse. We are not the only ones who have had thoughts and opinions on this record. I went to Amazon. Lizzie found some reviews from critics, and we are going to give you some other people's thoughts on this record. From Amazon.com.
Sheesh.
This is from John E. Pioli. The review is titled Necessary Recording, 5 stars, reviewed on July 17th, 2002. So almost 12 years ago.
Wow.
Okay. I've actually owned this for a while. I've seen them several times and met them all at least once. I also know this CD by heart. I'm not bragging. Let me explain. I am not one to easily proclaim my admiration for a band. It takes a lot to really impress me. And this album and this band never lets me down. This album is bookended superbly by 2 almost instrumental songs. Number 1 being Foreboding and number 12 giving some closure. The songs themselves are the product of musicians who care. The guitar work itself is a reason to get hooked on this album. The 2 guitarists complement each other's tone very well, using a lot of inventive chords and melodic phrasing. As for the vocals, they have a sadness and a sweetness to them that many artists strive for, but few achieve. Also check out Glassjaw, Red House Painters, and Morrissey and the Smiths for similar effects. Possibly it's worth this album for the lyrics alone. It's become all too common for lyrics to become personal in content. But Thursday take it a step beyond personal. They make you feel everything from glass in your hair to blood in your eyes. Even without the music, the lyrics hold their own. And let's be honest, you can't say that about most bands in the last 10 years. Warning to some of you other reviewers.
Oh.
I noticed several reviews that are negative of this album, which is fine. But some of which are negative for some very stupid reasons. Mostly, some of the people who listen to this have a problem with the screaming. Look, people, this is a band whose roots are very deep in hardcore. An investigation into hardcore, old or new, will display yelling and or screaming. And some of you had a problem with the album being too melodic. The fact is, and will always remain, that screaming is a way of expressing an emotion or feeling in a way that a note cannot. It is to be embraced, much like a kitten/puppy, claws and all. Furthermore, this band took a lot of chances with this album and it worked. One of the things that makes this band strong is the dramatic differences between soft and loud. If you don't appreciate the album itself, fine. but to discriminate against an album solely because of certain textural aspects, some of which are common to the emo hardcore genre, is pure ignorance. If you are one of those people, please leave the scene immediately. The fact that you only like your hardcore loud and angry is ludicrous. It makes the scene that much more unpleasant and uninviting.
Wow. I love the big warning sign that they have there.
Warning to other reviewers. Don't you fucking dare. This next review is by Sam.
Oh.
4 stars.
Okay.
Love it. Reviewed July 31st, 2006. Full Collapse is an album that is definitely worth listening to. There's not much to say about it other than that. One thing I really don't understand is how this band is classified as emo. I guess people can classify them however they want, but if you've never listened to them, don't let that label put you off. Because Thursday is one of the best bands I've ever heard. Great guitar riffs that I'm just dying to learn, and the vocals are awesome as well. The vocals are sort of loud, though. I'm not sure if that really explains it, but if you've heard the lead singer's voice, you know what I mean. One note, though, if you have a splitting headache, this might not be something you want to listen to.
That's fair.
Not wrong, not relevant.
I feel like that's a big thing, though, is that it's loud. And I think, like what I said earlier, I really got into this with punk music. Mm-hmm. Punk music is just loud and abrasive.
Yeah.
And I think that is at least what drew me into it. And I can see why a lot more people could be drawn into it if they have that similar background, especially if they were into hardcore earlier on.
I think the transition of emo and like what got popular in emo and then being like, oh, I'm going to check out this other emo band Thursday. And you're like, oh, wait, this isn't what I wanted. It's like, yeah, it's not Dashboard. Last review, this third review. This review is by Kel23. 2 stars.
Oh.
Maybe I'm in the wrong age group. Reviewed December 14th, 2006. I definitely understand why this band is classified as emo. This CD helped me solidify the impression I had that I don't care for emo. The album is not bad, and the band is tight enough for a young band, but the issue I have with emo, and with this album in particular, is it's not really anything. It's not hardcore, it's not really melodic. It's sort of stuck in the middle of both, but not quite reaching either one. Maybe I'm not the target audience for emo or this band. I get that. That's okay. I can't stop thinking Thursday seem like they're trying desperately to sound like Fugazi and never really getting there. And that's the rub of it, I guess. With bands like Thursday and She Wants Revenge, they appear to be reaching for the roots of the alternative hardcore or new wave music, but for someone who knows what the real thing sounds like, they're a poor imitation. The sound is immature and lacks the urgency and edge that the original bands had at the time. I have a friend with a 14-year-old son who asked me to burn him a copy of this CD. I think I'll just be giving it to him and calling it done.
Don't bring She Wants Revenge into this slander.
Didn't need that. Didn't need that shit in there.
Didn't need that.
Didn't need that.
And also, first of all, Fugazi fucks. Like, again, a lot of these bands were influenced by Fugazi too.
Yep. A lot of bands that came before, a lot of people trying to do it, a lot of people changing the formula, doing something with the formula that came before, and creating something new out of it. Not everybody has to like it. For Kel, it's probably not in the right age group, apparently.
I mean, the 14-year-old son is probably having a great time right now, whoever you are.
Yeah.
Hope you're doing great.
You're doing great.
The first one is from Absolute Punk by Chris Collum on March 4th, 2010, 95% out of 100.
Good.
Beautiful, echoing, ethereal guitar begins to filter through your speakers, slowly fading into your consciousness. The biggest draw musically of Full Collapse is that it is a work of stark contrast. The aforementioned Understanding in a Car Crash demonstrates this beautifully, moving from the harsh and abrasive to the ambient and soothing in a matter of mere seconds. This is a trait that is found throughout the 42 minutes of the album. Guitarist Tom Keeley is the star of the show here, twisting across frets to create beautiful melodies that transcend normal chord progressions. Steve Padula generally provides the garnish. Full Collapse is generally pigeonholed as a post-hardcore album, and while comparisons to bands such as Glassjaw and At the Drive-In might be appropriate, by the large, this album is not post-hardcore in the way that it has generally been heard recently. Look for no filler breakdowns, wannabe deathcore stunts, or oversexed stage drama or eyeliner here. Thursday is the real deal. Thursday proved to the world once and for all that not all hardcore kids are idiots. You can play screamy music and still create intelligible art. That was a real sentence you put together there.
It's Absolute Punk.
And Full Collapse deserves to be treated as such, a genuine work of art. And besides, anything that pisses Pitchfork off this much must have some potential, right? Well, we're in luck. Here's the Pitchfork review of Thursday's Full Collapse.
Oh, boy.
This is by Eric Carr, June 10th, 2002. 5.6 out of 10. Which for Pitchfork, we can argue that that's like a B-. We begin. As faithful students of the music media, it's fairly common knowledge that if a band album can't be pigeonholed into some ridiculously named subgenre, then it ceases to exist. Naturally, when I saw that tens, nay dozens, of individuals were having trouble categorizing Thursday's debut CD, Full Collapse, I panicked. Is it hardcore? No. Snapcase would come and destroy anyone who seriously attempted to claim that. Is it emo? No, instead of pointless whining, Full Collapse is full of pointless screaming. How about screamo? Not wanting to see Thursday fall to the wayside for lack of a classification, I consulted my good friend, Mr. Robert Stack, with the latest mystery I needed him to unsolve for me. Uncharacteristically, he provided an answer to my question immediately and suggested that Thursday may be classified as simply shit. And after spending some quality time with Full Collapse, I have to agree with Mr. Stack. Thursday does a few things right, but all in all, this could have been a much better album. These guys bring taking themselves too seriously to a level few bands have ever even considered. I'm all for the serious approach to music, but enough is enough. Full Collapse is a scream-tastic, but that's about it. It doesn't even stand out in its own minuscule sub-genre. There's better screamo out there. Check out Relationship of Command. And if you've already done that and decided that some more teen angst is what your world needs now, then go to it. Another sale might be just the thing to get Thursday to lighten up a little.
That's objectively bad.
Yeah.
Those are our thoughts on Thursday's Full Collapse. Those are the reviewers from the internet's thoughts on Thursday's Full Collapse. But now we have one more question to answer. Should you see Thursday play Full Collapse in full at When We Were Young Fest 2024?
Yeah, I think you should. I think in general, Thursday is a really good band to see live, regardless of whatever album they're playing. They were a really, really good show. If you haven't seen them yet, take this time to go and see them during When We Were Young Fest when you were there, or they do tour a lot. So they will be around again if you're not able to make it to the fest, or if there's somebody else you really want to see during that time slot. But I really implore you to check out Thursday.
Absolutely. No question. This is going to be one of the sets to see this weekend, I think. I think that is going to be a band putting on one of the best shows, playing this record like it was, normal for them to play the record in full. They're clearly very talented musicians, and I think they care, and I think they value not only the fans, but also like the music that they've written and the response to it. I just think it's a no-brainer. It's a cannot miss of the weekend. This would be like one of my top sets of the weekend right now to go and see. So yeah, 10 out of 10, no notes. Well, that's where we'll be at When We Were Young Fest, but where will you be? Hopefully in the comments down below, telling us what you think of our thoughts. Were we right? Were we wrong? We were right. This record is fire. This record is so good. Let us know that you agree with us in the comments down below. Make sure to subscribe while you're here. We are going through the rest of the records. We're going through all the records that are being played at the weekend of When We Were Young, and you need to know which ones are worth your time and which ones are not from us. We're the only ones who can ever help you with that.
Yeah, we're the products of authority here.
We are the authority. Listen to us. But until then, until When We Were Young, until Thursday, and until Full Collapse, we will see you there.